Okay, my friends, it is Saturday, February 8th, 2025, and this is the Daily Brief. So, in the last few days, I was telling you about a couple of trending stories. So, the numbers are going down. That's still happening. Kursk, they've punched through, and I'll update you on what's going on in Kursk. And then the third trend is oil refineries being attacked, and that's still happening. And so, we're going to get going here. 1,210 Russians off the battlefield. 6 tanks, 22 armored fighting vehicles, 35 artillery systems, 95 vehicles and fuel tanks. Now, somebody was asking me, like, why are the numbers of vehicles so high and the casualty rate so low? And that's really interesting. So somebody asked if I could compare or analyze that. I'm not sure how equipped I am to analyze that. Now, somebody also speculated that the number of casualties or the diminished amount of attacks might be weather related. That could be. But what we do know is this: 1,260, that's about 300 lower average daily in February than the average daily in January. So that's where we are right now. Somebody else also put this out, and I thought that was funny. Donkeys plus 47. I don't know if that's an accurate number, if they're just making this kind of thing up. But why are we talking about donkeys? Well, Russia is now using donkeys to transport ammunition on the front line in the invasion of Ukraine, regressing by over 100 years to World War I methods. Okay, this is a serious story. This is actually happening. And here's a little bit something kind of jokey here, but headlines in Russia translated: new robots and tanks are coming 2021. And okay, and then newspaper in 2025, State Duma explained the appearance of donkeys at the front. Well, that's not a joke. Here it is in United 24, this bit about better to be a donkey, better for a donkey to be killed than for two soldiers, says a Russian general who defends using animals for frontline supply. February 7th. Okay. And he said, this was a Russian soldier talking, found out, wait, we were sending donkeys? What? Quote, just accept it as a fact. Don't ask where, why, or how. I don't know, but the fact is they issued us a donkey. Okay. And then we have issues with transport. Our trucks are being destroyed. So now we have a donkey to carry ammunition, a real living donkey, not humanitarian aid. Our logistics truck went to pick up supplies and came back with a donkey. Okay, so like these donkeys, I like this is for real donkeys on the front line. Okay, but the rationale is actually good, right? Better for a donkey to die than two soldiers, and this is from the Russians, who don't really value life the same way that the rest of us do. Okay, Ukraine's Air Force reports on a Shahed drone attack overnight out of 139 launched. That's very high. Usually you're like 60, 70, 80, something like that. 67 shot down, 71 were suppressed by electronic warfare. That's not all of them, and they did some damage. Russians attacked a residential area in Kherson this morning. Several houses were damaged. One caught fire. 3 people were injured, including an 11-year-old boy. And then the Russian forces dropped 3 air bombs on an apartment building in Myrialipilia. I'm not sure if I pronounced that right. Sumy Oblast, burying 3 people alive as they slept in their beds. So they just keep targeting civilians in this kind of way. This is a still image of what the city of Toretsk looks like. Like Toretsk is one of those places that you hear about. Again, the Russians are gaining ground here and there and the other place, and it's Liman and Toretsk and Pokrovsk, and yeah, this is what Toretsk actually looks like. It's really shocking to see. It's like, I mean, I don't even know what to make of it. Okay, another suicidal Russian attack on 2 motorcycles across an open field, an easy target for the drone operators of the 110th Separate Mechanized Brigade. Now, we're not going to see what happens to them, but yeah, to cross on motorcycles, that just seems like a bizarrely bad idea. Russian forces suffer tremendous losses due to poor planning in failed offensive in Velika Novosilka, Donetsk Oblast. Ukrainian artillery decimated a Russian column of 8 armored vehicles, with Ukrainian drone operators hunting down the rest. So they've essentially taken Velika Novosilka. They surrounded it. They've taken most of the ground there. Well, as of about a week ago, there was just a few Ukrainians left within the city, and they keep coming. And yeah, this is the kind of thing that happens just because they have pretty bad tactics. Okay, Russian soldier in the occupied Ukrainian Kharkiv storms into a Ukrainian family's apartment, kicking the door down, presumably to loot it. So yeah, this seems like a great idea. Um, and like, I don't think there's a military purpose. I think this is let's just let's just do more destruction. Okay, now let's shift gears a bit and look at what's going on with the Ukrainians. Ukrainian forces changed their targeting strategy on Russian territory. With at least 66 successful air attacks inside Russia over 4 months, Ukraine is shifting focus from infrastructure to more military sites, arms factories, fuel supply chains. And so if you look at where the hits are, there's a lot of hits on military facilities, some on oil industry, some on like an ethanol plant or another energy facility. And the big ones are going to be military and oil, right? We've seen a lot of those kind of things across southern and southeast or southwest Russia. Okay. So what they're hitting are good targets that are potentially part of what's slowing down the Russian military even now. So we'll see how that all plays out over time. Ukrainian UAVs attacked two oil pumping stations near Chertikovo in the Rostov region, reportedly damaging administrative buildings. And then drones also struck an oil refinery in the Volgograd region. And so the hits keep coming there. So there's a number of good strikes here. Smoke is rising from two locations in Rostov. We've seen at least two successful strikes. Russian sources claim a total of 36 Ukrainian drones were shot down overnight. 18 of those were in the Rostov region. So, okay. So they keep doing the same kind of thing, hitting these oil refineries. And over time, they're wearing the Russians down with that. Now, how do they do it? It seems that they've used these domestically produced jet-powered Pelko missile drones for the attack, and the Russians don't seem to have really good defenses for this, as far as we can tell. Let's turn our attention now to what was going on in Kursk. Russian sources still downplaying the Ukrainian advances in Kursk, while geolocated footage clearly shows Ukrainian presence deeper east of Fanaslivka. And if you just look at where the map is, and this is one of the better maps, it shows like how they punch through this, and they have a salient here. Russian mill blogger Wargonzo also confirms Ukrainian presence in Fanaslivka. And if we look at another map here, this second day of Ukrainian counteroffensive actions in the Kursk region, according to Russian media, control over 4 villages has been lost. I mean, according to the Russians, they have lost control over 4 villages. But it doesn't look like it's gotten a lot of traction in the last 24 hours. Here's the ISW. Russian sources claimed on February 6th and 7th that Russian forces have at least temporarily stalled Ukrainian advances southeast of Susa. Somebody corrected me here yesterday. By the way, thank you for those of you who reached out and were like, hey, I know you're trying to pronounce things like the ZH, say it as a S. So Susa rather than Sutza, right? Sutza. Okay. Thank you for that. I appreciate, I try to read as many comments as I can, and I appreciate your help. In Pokrovsk direction, 27 attacks. Again, I show you only Pokrovsk because Pokrovsk was the height for the last, I don't know how many months. And just a couple weeks ago, it was up in the 60s, almost up to 80. And now it's down to 27. And that gels with what we see as the lower numbers. They're just not able to attack. And we just don't know why, whether it's weather or whether it's induced by lack of supplies or lack of vehicles and they need donkeys or what exactly it is. Just don't know. Okay, NATO's highest ranking military officer visited Kyiv on 7 February in his first foreign trip since taking command, and discussed military aid with the foreign minister of Ukraine. And then finally, last few things, I just never tire of watching drones, Ukrainian drones striking Russian UAVs. It's just pretty fascinating to watch these things being targeted. So please bear with me. This is just look at this one. Let's stop right there. You can see that last one, like you can see the shadow coming over it just before it hits. And this, just by the shadow, you can tell because of the spool beneath that would be an FPV, or sorry, a fiber optic drone with the cable connection underneath. Okay, here are drones rescuing other drones, a land drone actually going out and rescuing a fallen aerial drone and bringing the hexcopter back from the battlefield. And then finally, I'll leave you with this. This is, well, two more things. Michael McKay talking about tips for resistance fighters. Michael McKay does here's how many assaults there were in Kursk, and here's how many in Liman, and here's how many in, yeah. Okay, so tips for resistance fighters. Ukrainians spot Russian occupiers because they can't say Polyantia correctly. I don't know if I said it correctly. I hope I did, cross my fingers, but if I didn't, that's okay. Russians can't say it either. Canadians will spot American invaders because they can't say "oat" and a boat, the house, correctly. I don't know if I slaughtered that. I try to say it like a Canadian, but I would say out and about the house as opposed to oat and a boat, the house. Okay, well, at any rate, vowel trouble gives away foreign interlopers. And then lastly, I'll leave you with this. These are children that were forcibly taken from their mother, sent to orphanages, and subjected to Russian propaganda, forced into meetings with the military, trained to assemble guns, and enrolled in paramilitary clubs. In occupied territories, Kremlin propaganda begins as early as kindergarten. Ukrainian children are not raised as free individuals, but as captives of the regime. But these 8 children are now safe, and they are brought home. Now, this says this, and I think it's great, but it's terrible at the same time. We've now brought back 579 children. That's great for the 579, but we're talking orders of tens of thousands, or maybe orders of larger than that, of Ukrainian children forcibly removed to Russia. And yeah, so great. I'm glad to see 579 children, but there's so many more that have been taken away and deported to Russia. Thank you for your time, my friends. Thank you for the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.